Will Jujutsu Kaisen live up to the hype? Will Sukuna die and that's it? That's the end of the story. Will Yuji achieve his goal of dying surrounded by the people he loves, which in turn means he had a good death? We have these big questions that will soon be answered, but I just had to think about something. And for me, I asked the question, what's a big fight that the Jujutsu Kaisen story can manifest and generate hype over? Previously, we had Gojo vs Sukuna, Yuji vs Mahito, Toji vs Gojo. These are the big money fights that sell the manga, in my opinion. You got the story, of course, but I feel big hype fights with big characters are what the story centers around. The final arc before the showdown in Shinjuku, when Gojo returned in chapter 221, was build up for the Gojo vs Sukuna fight, which ironically wasn't much of a build up, as in a couple of chapters they squared off and had their showdown. But the hype for these two to fight started all the way back from the second episode when we had glimpses of them both fighting, and the hype started from there. We knew Sukuna was nowhere close to his full strength, but if Sukuna were to be, then him and Gojo would have had the best fight in the whole series and would probably end up being one of the best fights in shonen. The story itself kept both of them separate, which built anticipation for the eventual moment where they both face off against each other. When Gojo got sealed away in the Shibuya incident arc, only then Sukuna entered Shibuya. It's very tactical by Gege, I must say, but I've made a video talking about the anticipation of the Gojo vs Sukuna fight, which is nearly 25 minutes long, so if you want a big analysis video talking about the build-up for that fight, then go right ahead and watch that video. But yeah, the build-up for that fight was always there, same as the Yuji vs Mahito fight in Shibuya. We saw Junpei getting killed by Mahito, and then Mahito in Shibuya killed Nanami and Nobara, Yuji's mentor and one of Yuji's best friends. So again, just like the Gojo vs Sukuna fight, this fight had that same build-up and anticipation for a mega grudge fight. And it was the finale fight in the Shibuya incident arc, and finally in the Gojo past arc, it was Gojo vs Toji. That was the big fight in that arc. This fight though was a little bit different because the arc itself was a lot shorter given that it was a flashback, and also we had Toji defeating Gojo in round 1. The fact that he managed to do that gave us fans that hype and anticipation to see whether or not if Toji can manage to do this again. So the hype for the second round was generated from the first round of that fight. So this is what I'm talking about. Gojo vs Sukuna was the big overarching hype mega fight that us fans wanted to see and had an entire story worth of build-up which accumulated in the latest Shinjuku showdown arc. We also had these big fights that were like an ending finale for that arc, as we saw with Yuji vs Mahito, Gojo vs Toji. But what's going to be the defining fight for the finale of the story? What's going to generate enough hype for the story now? What's the big fight that will close off the story in a big way? Well, the obvious and most likely candidate is the fight between Yuji vs Sukuna. That is the ultimate grudge fight now, and especially with all the things that Sukuna has done to Yuji, I expect this fight to be the big finale fight for the story. However, I just want to throw a curveball in the mix. What if Gege is actually planning for the final fight to be between Megumi and Yuji? I've made videos previously on how I think potentially Yuji or Megumi could become the next Sukuna, but if one of them were to become the next Sukuna, then would that mean that these two would be destined to fight off against each other? The general theory going around the community is that Megumi has most likely absorbed some of Sukuna's techniques, just like how Yuji managed to absorb Sukuna's slice attacks. Sukuna did the infamous bath in chapter 216, which will bury Megumi's soul in evil, and we have seen in the Shinjuku showdown arc that Megumi has no desire to live anymore. So essentially, if you truly want to get rid of Sukuna from this world, then defeating Sukuna's soul and defeating the two vessels that carried him may be the only way on fully getting rid of Sukuna once and for all. Okay, so how do we get to that point? How do we get to the point in the story where both Yuji and Megumi will end up having the finale grudge fight? So firstly, Sukuna's spirit would have to be defeated, and it's only a matter of time now before he is defeated, and if Megumi's body were to somehow survive, then you can see Shoko or Yuta, but probably Shoko, using reverse curse technique to revive Megumi's body. Megumi will be fully unconscious during the recovery phase, but when he wakes up, that will be the moment that will define Megumi. Megumi will remember the horror that he himself did because even though Sukuna was in Megumi's body, it was still Megumi's body. It was Megumi's body that did all those atrocities. It was Megumi's body that killed his own sister. It was Megumi's body that killed Gojo, his own mentor and big brother figure. Remember the famous scene where Sukuna, just before reverting back to Yuji, "Hey brat, take a good look." And the horror within Yuji himself was too much for him. Mind you, Yuji never did the cursed evil bath to take his soul closer to evil. This was Yuji just being normal and having his body being taken over by Sukuna, and yet he still cursed himself, calling himself a murderer. But Megumi went through the cursed path, and being the one to know that his body was responsible for killing the most important person in the world for him, which was his sister. What will his reaction be after he comes back in control of his body? The damage is done, and it's set a path for Megumi to be the next Sukuna. History always repeats itself in the story. Sukuna was originally a sorcerer who then fell and became the king of all curses. Geto was a sorcerer who then fell and became the arch-enemy of Gojo, wanting to create a world of only the strongest Jujutsu sorcerers. And now in this time in Yuji's era, we will have Megumi be the latest one to fall and be consumed with the remnants of Sukuna's power, as he will be the one to utilize the true potential of the 10 Shadows technique. In both Yuji and Megumi, still to this very day haven't shown their domain expansions yet. Will the domain expansions be shown when they both fight off against each other? Megumi doesn't want to live anymore. He lost his will and drive for life. Maybe that will be the catalyst for him to genuinely end all life and create the world of shadows. The Chimera Shadow Garden is his domain expansion, but what if he wants to expand that and make the world fall into his domain? It's a bit like in Beyblade G Revolution, where Brooklyn covered the world in darkness. I know it's cliche, but the guy has no family left. He failed to protect his sister. He technically killed her and his mentor, so Megumi will be more destructive than what Yuji was when Sukuna said, "Hey brat, take a good look." So the only realistic viewpoint I can see Megumi's mindset being after he recovers will be on the dark, destructive path like Geto and Sukuna before him. And Yuji has a hero complex. As much as he wants to die surrounded by the people he cares about, I feel he loves being the hero and saving people more. And it was Yuji who was attacking Sukuna's soul in order to get to Megumi to regain his body. Yuji feels responsible for Megumi, which is why I feel this is the destined finale. It's not that Yuji wants to fight Megumi, but I feel he will be forced to fight him regardless because of Megumi's destructive path. Yuji seeing that Megumi has no will to live during the fight with Sukuna, that might bring about a tragic irony. Yuji, the man that loves saving people's lives from danger and will risk his own life for the betterment of the people, he saves innocent people so they don't die in the hands of cursed spirits. But now Yuji may have to kill Megumi in order to save Megumi for the potential destructive life that he will potentially lead. This is how I feel the story will end. I can't just see the story ending with Sukuna dying. What happens to Megumi after Sukuna's soul is gone? The story can't just end so abruptly. So I feel Gege has one more mega fight planned that will end in a tragedy, because that's what Gege loves doing. He loves it when us fans go through the motions regarding these characters. He loves torturing his own fans, so I have a good feeling that this will be the ultimate finale fight. But let me go over to you guys now. What do you guys think? Do you think this will be the finale fight, or will the story end after Sukuna is defeated? Let me know in the comments down below, and of course, don't forget to subscribe to the Shaman Tribe.